Welcome everybody to Cedar City, Utah, inside the confines of the America First Event Center, the host site for the first time in 5 years for the 2023 MRGC Championships, as Southern Utah looks to capture their first crown, and Utah State will look to capture their second in a row, going up against the always formidable tandem of Boise State and BYU. Hi everybody, welcome to Cedar City. Glad you can join us here on ESPN+. Spencer McLaughlin with you alongside Megan and Maddie McBride. It's the last time the MRGCs will be played as we know it, like this, with BYU off to the Big 12, which always just sets up for a little bit of extra drama.
Definitely a lot of drama. This team, or all four of these teams, have been competing against each other for a long time, and so to see them for the last time together in the same place, there's going to be a lot of energy tonight.
Southern Utah is looking to capture their first conference crown ever and their first gymnastics conference championship since 2010 when they were in the WAC. Maddie, it's hard to imagine that Southern Utah hasn't won that with how good they've been. 9 straight regional appearances under now 32nd year head coach Scotty Bauman. They are in line for a 10th, sitting at number 21 nationally in the NQS, but their motivation, especially here at home, to be crowned MRGC champions in 2023 is very real.
Absolutely, and I mean, that's always the goal, and that's the goal for every team here. And every team here has had a really good season so far, building from lower scores in the beginning up until the end of season, and that's the same for Southern Utah University. And if they have a strong meet, they could take home the championship tonight.
Utah State comes in as the lowest ranked team with their NQS score having them 45th in the country, not likely to make another regional tournament appearance, but neither of these programs or any of these programs are going to doubt the Aggies' confidence level. They are the reigning MRGC champions last year, putting up a score just over 197, a score that hadn't been seen in the conference championships since 2018. So Utah State certainly formidable, though they come in the lowest ranked. And the other thing for BYU and Boise State, Megan, is they are right on the cusp of qualifying for regionals once again. They come in 34th and 35th respectively this year. Boise State number 35 and BYU number 34 in the country. The top 36 automatically go to regionals, and that's what every team has their eyes dead set on right now. So for BYU and Boise State, you could argue the pressure is highest tonight.
For sure, because tonight's meet, depending on their score, it could raise their NQS score or it could lower their NQS score. So with them being on the cusp of that 36 ranking, anything goes tonight, and it's very imperative for them to have a good meet.
You'd have to imagine that something in the 196 range would probably get the Aggies and or the Broncos into regionals once again, which is where they would like to be, but still another meet to go. But the other thing, Maddie, is they won't know their fate in terms of whether or not they make the regionals this year until all the other scores across the country come in with other conference championships. So for the Broncos and for the Cougars, it's all about focusing on each individual event.
Correct. They won't. There are still championships happening tomorrow, and they just have to focus, like you said, every event, every skill, and just make everything count tonight to be sure that they get that regional appearance this year.
Meanwhile, for Southern Utah, they've never won this conference championship, and trying to do so in front of their home fans. It would have been here 4 years ago, but sadly there were no college postseason events in 2020. So here we are in 2023. 4 teams, 4 great programs for the ultimate performance of the MRGC Championships as we have known them for quite some time. We'll be rotating all around throughout the night. We'll have 2 events going at a time, but never more than that, and we'll keep you posted as the scores come in all night long. And we are ready for the first vault. That belongs to Utah State. Boise State will begin on the beams, Southern Utah on the bars, and that leaves BYU first up on the floor, and 2 teams will be competing at a time. So let's take you down to the action. The lineup for Utah State and first-year head coach Kristen White on the vault has Peyton Gatzlaff out there with the freshman at Chelsea Southam. Jenna Eagles, Brianna Brooks, Olivia Ostendorf, and Angel Stewart round out the vault lineup for the 45th ranked Aggies this year. For Boise State on the balance beam, they have typically run with just a 6 gymnast rotation this year. Alyssa Vulaj is first, followed by Talia Little, Erin Elkbachi, Emily Lopez, Emma Loyam, and Adriana Pop. And we are set for our first vault of the night. And all eyes on the sophomore from Ankeny, Iowa, Peyton Gatzlaff, for Utah State on the vault in the top right corner of your screen. And that is Vulaj on the balance beam for Boise State.
We have have our first vault up of the night, Peyton Gatzlaff. Starts off the meet with a beautiful Yurchenko full. Looked like she piked down just a tiny bit at the end, leading to a hop, but otherwise great start to the meet for the Utah State Aggies.
Looking back to beam, which is on the main screen, Vulaj did start with a fall in her first series, but it seems to be hitting the rest of her skills nicely. That is a hard position for Boise to be in, to start off with a fall, but if the rest of the 5 competitors hit, they will be in just a fine position. A little bit of a bobble on that front summy.
And such a different feel for all of these gymnasts tonight in a quad meet. You get hyped, you get ready, the music is playing, the energy is palpable, and then for 2 teams you have to sit, and for 2 other teams it's just not quite the same as to what they've been accustomed to all year.
Definitely, it's very different from the normal dual meet, because those other teams on bars and floor have to wait just a little bit longer to start competing, so it's unusual for sure.
And the home fans making noise for the senior Caitlin Coe, her final time competing here at the AFEC on bars. In the top left portion of your screen, that's Eliza Millar, the sophomore from Cincinnati, on floor.
Kate Coe starts with a beautiful cast a handstand to a toe on Maloney, connected straight to a pack. Her form is gorgeous throughout this routine, keeping her legs tight together. Great last handstand into the dismount with a stick. Amazing routine to start off the Thunderbirds tonight.
And over on floor, we have Eliza Miller of BYU starting off. Starts off with a beautiful rounded back handspring double tuck. Looks like she came out a little bit early and took a hop forward. I think it's impossible to have a bad time on floor when you have Earth, Wind, and Fire floor music.
Oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't know, but I tend to agree.
Going into that second pass. Punch front layout, punch front full, stuck landing, and beautiful. Great lead-off floor routine for the Cougars.
So each team's first gymnast has gone through and gotten the opening jitters out for their teams, and we're back over to the vault and beam. Utah State on the vault, Boise State on the beam. The Aggies send out the freshman Chelsea Southam, and on the balance beam, you're watching Talia Little.
Chelsea Southam just competed a Yurchenko half. Looks like she didn't quite get the right block angle off the vault, so she took a hop backwards, but very clean lines throughout the vault.
We have Talia Little here on beam with a beautiful back handspring step out, layout, step out series. And Talia's goal here is just to focus, stay calm on every skill, and do her gymnastics to be the start off for the next 5 for her team to hit their beam routines tonight. She goes for her front side move, which is a requirement in every beam routine. Beautiful front aerial connected to a beat jump. A little extra flourish here before she goes into her dismount. Round off 1.5. A little bit of a hop forward, but a hit routine from Boise, and a really good one at that to start off the next 5 of their routines.
Certainly how they wanted to respond. Head coach Tina Bird starting with a fall in her beam lineup, but gets a solid routine there on the balance beam from the junior.
We have Aubrey Schwartz on bars, starting with a hop grip Jaeger. Got the catch, goes into a nice handstand to a bail, held that on the top, which is what the judges want to be seeing from that skill. A held handstand again at the end into her dismount. A baby hop backwards, but an awesome routine from Aubrey Schwartz for the Thunderbirds.
Over on floor, we have Sydney Benson, who just did a beautiful round off back handspring double tuck to start off her floor routine. Beautiful controlled leap pass. Beautiful front pass. She did a punch front layout, punch front full. Great control on that landing. Now, another thing the judges are going to be looking for, other than the tumbling passes and the required leap pass, is they're going to be looking for the performance aspect on the floor. It's just as much a part of the routine as the tumbling passes. Gearing up for that final pass. Round off back handspring, double pike. Beautiful chest up landing and great routine for the Cougars.
Well, our first scores have started to come in. Peyton Gatzlaff with a 9.75 for Utah State over on the vault, where we will head back to with the senior Erin Elkbachi for the Aggies. Vulaj a 9.05 on the beam for the Broncos. They'll be hoping to drop that score as the routines go on. I beg your pardon, this is Elkbachi on the beam for Boise State. Jenna Eagles up next on the vault, top right corner of your screen.
Another beautiful Yurchenko full vault. Great height, great distance. Just a little bit of a pike down, but she did snag that landing, so that should be a great vault for the Utah State Aggies.
And on beam for Boise, Erin had her back handspring step out layout, step out series. She did have a little bit of a question mark on that landing, dropped her shoulder a bit, but stayed on. And there you saw her side aerial, no deduction there. Looks like she might have been trying to connect that to another jump. She might attempt that again to get the required bonus to get her at a 10-0 start value. So she will get connection bonus for that redo, but will take deduction for the first bobble. Here she goes into her dismount, round off 1.5. Little hop forward, but a hit routine for Boise on beam.
Trista Goodman is up on the bars for Southern Utah, and Sophie Dudley, the sophomore from Plano, Texas, on the floor for the Cougars and 8th-year head coach Gard Young.
Trista starts off with a blind Jaeger, where she hits to a beautiful held cast a handstand to a pack. Pirouette to handstand as she's leading up into the dismount. Blind full to a double back. And a stick from Trista Goodman.
And over on floor for BYU, we have Sophie Dudley, who has been a formidable contributor for the BYU floor.
She had a 9.9 on her floor routine, just off her season high. Oh, that's bad.
Did you hit something? From Dudley so far, we've seen a beautiful round back handspring double pike and a front layout front full for her second pass. And she's winding up for that last pass right now. Round off back handspring, huge double tuck, great height, great chest up on the landing. That should be a great score for BYU.
Well, BYU already has 1.98 on the floor from Eliza Millar, who started things off. There's also a 9.8 over on the balance beam for Boise State from Talia Little, but up next on the beam is Emily Lopez. As you take a look there at the junior from Mission Viejo, California, and Brianna Brooks, the sophomore from down the road in Las Vegas, getting ready for her vault.
On vault, we see another beautiful Yurchenko full. You can see the good distance she got away from the vault, which is something the judges are looking for. So that should be a great score for the Aggies.
Emily Lopez on beam just did a triple series, back handspring step out, layout step out, connected to another back handspring step out, which, as you can see, adds a lot of difficulty to her beam routine. You won't see many triple series from a lot of the competitors tonight, but she executed it beautifully. And there you see the required jump pass.
And she has been strong on the balance beam this year. Several MRGC Beam Specialists of the Week honors here in 2023.
Beautiful front summy. No deduction there on the landing. Every beam routine requires an acrobatic series, a leap series, and a front side move, including a dismount at the end. And a toe turn. A little bit of a hop on the landing, but another hit routine from Boise, which is what they want to be seeing after starting with the fall tonight.
Next two competitors, Carly McLean in the top left corner, Heidi Schooley on the main screen, ready to take the floor.
Carly McLean has been a formidable competitor. If we have MRGC fans watching tonight, holding many of the MRGC titles, and here she starts her bar routine.
She's competing in these championships for the last time.
Awesome Ginger. Carly is just gluing her feet together throughout all her skills. Great bail to handstand. Hoping to get another stick for the Thunderbirds as she goes into her dismount. Awesome routine from Carly McLean. Beautiful handstands, beautiful landings, great routine.
Over on floor, we have Heidi Schooley. Beautiful controlled landing on that leap pass. You can tell she's having fun out there along with her teammates on the side.
She is one of 17 underclassmen for Guard Young's team, one of the youngest that you'll really find anywhere, especially for a team that has regionals in their sights.
Definitely. Beautiful round of back handspring double tuck for her last pass. She had great chest up on that landing, so altogether a clean routine.
And she is excited about it, goes and gets some high tens from her coaches and teammates. Now our fifth performers for every team in this first rotation. Emma Loyam is up on the balance beam for Boise State, and over on the vault, it'll be Olivia Ostendorf for the Aggies of Utah State.
Another beautiful Yurchenko full. She had great height off of the vault, got in really nicely on the vault for that block angle, and really just a tiny hop on that landing. So very clean vault for the Aggies.
And we have Emma Loyam on beam, and I know I said last routine you wouldn't see a lot of triple series, but Boise has proven me wrong. She had a back handspring step out, layout step out, connected to another layout step out. Just a little bit of a check on the landing, but again, that is a difficult skill to execute on the beam.
Well, after the fall from Boulage, Boise State has responded with a pair of 9.8s and a 9.625 from Erin El-Kabachi. The strongest start from the scores we've got so far belong to BYU. All three scores 9.8 and above from Benson, Dudley, and Millar over on the floor.
Here she goes into her gainer full dismount. Had her chest down a little bit on the landing, had to take a hop forward, but a hit routine for Emma Loyam.
And another Thunderbird competing in this gym for the last time. We'll give it one final go-round on the uneven bars in the top left of your screen. That's Shai Murakami, who holds the school record on this event.
If there's a bar routine to look forward tonight, this is one of them. From Shailin Murakami, eagle grip to a huge Jaeger, connected to a bail. Shailin just flies on every skill that she does. She's winding out for her full-out dismount. A little bit of a hop backwards, but a great last routine in the AFEC for Shylin Murakami.
Meanwhile, Elise Rollins is making my mom happy somewhere with the Top Gun music here in Cedar City tonight.
From Elise Rollins so far, we saw a stuck round off back handspring double tuck and make the most of this Top Gun music. One thing that is also unique at the MRGC Championships is that instead of 2 judges per event, we have 4 judges. So you'll take the high and the low scores and drop them and average the 2 middle scores. Going into that second pass, front layout step out into a front full with higher amplitude on the second pass, which is exactly what the judges are looking for. BYU has really put out some great gymnastics tonight on floor, just really solid routines from all of them.
And the anchor slots ready for every team. Adriana Pop will be on the balance beam for Boise State. And Angel Stewart, the junior from Gilberts, Illinois, up on the vault for Utah State head coach Kristen White.
Another Yurchenko full from Utah State. Great distance away from the vault, good amplitude. Just a little bit of a hop backwards, but great vault rotation for the Aggies tonight.
Hopping back over to beam with Adriana Pop. Yet again, another triple series. This one, a different one. A flick, a back handspring, flick to a back handspring 2-foot, layout 2-foot. And she's hit every skill so far with only minimal deduction. She looks really great up there. And this is what Boise's looking for, to just get one more hit routine to not have to count a fall tonight on their first event. And they did it with a stuck dismount.
So a strong finish to this first rotation for Boise State, and they avoid counting a fall. But you know, the conference championships will be even more punitive than normal with the quality of teams that we've got here inside the AFEC tonight. Over on the floor, Rebecca Bean Ripley is up for BYU, and Southern Utah sends the sophomore Bella Neff onto the bars.
Bella Neff has beautiful lines on bars, as you'll see. Toe on to a toe on Maloney, just extend it all the way through her toe point to a connected bail, and she winds up for her dismount. A blind full double back, little step forward, but 6 hit routine for the Thunderbirds to start off their first event tonight.
And over on floor, we have Rebecca Bean, who has a really fun Barbie-inspired floor routine that has gone viral this year. It's really fun to watch floor because you kind of get to see every gymnast personality shine a little bit more, because you don't really get to see that on the other events. Going into that second pass. Round off back handspring, double pike. Maybe just a little bit of control on that landing, but she did have her chest up. Really fun floor routine by Rebecca, and altogether a great rotation for the Cougars.
First rotation is in the books. We'll be back in a couple minutes to sum up all the scores and let you know where things stand and get you going with rotation number 2. You're watching the MRGC Championships on ESPN+. Welcome back to Cedar City. As you take a look at the scores, strong starts pretty much across the board. Southern Utah and BYU both over 49. Utah State and Boise State on the cusp of eclipsing that 49 number here at the end of rotation number 1. BYU on the floor with a 49.225. Southern Utah on the bars with a 49.1 and a 48.9 for Utah State on the vault, and Boise State with a 48.775 as we welcome you back inside the AFX. Spencer McLaughlin joined by Megan and Maddie McBride. And Megan, I feel like that first rotation ended, most importantly, the way Boise State needed it to. After opening with a fall at the conference championships with a really talented beam worker, for them to come back and notch the scores they did was really impressive.
It's very impressive. It's always hard to have a fall in anywhere in your beam lineup, but especially with your first up, because it really adds a lot more pressure to the rest of the competitors to hit the routine, because 5 of the 6 routines count, and if you fall more than once, you're going to be counting a fall, which significantly lowers your score. So for them to come back from a fall at the very beginning and hit 5 for 5 for the rest of the routines is really impressive and a great start for the Boise Broncos.
BYU off to the hottest start so far here tonight, though, with a 49.225. Maddie, there just weren't that many things wrong with any of the floor routines that we saw from the Cougars off to a really strong start.
No, I would agree. They had really dynamic tumbling. Their punch angles into all of their double backs and double pikes were just spot on. Controlled landings, controlled leaps, fun dancing. It was just everything you could look for in floor routines, and so they had a good start.
For Southern Utah, meanwhile, over 49 on their first rotation. They will certainly take that on any of the events that they have tonight, as will any of these teams. But I feel like the most important thing, hitting all of those performances tonight on the uneven bars always gives your team a lot of confidence.
Definitely. If anything, what you're looking for in a gymnastics meet for any team is to hit 24 for 24 routines, and SUU is off to a great start with 6 for 6 routines, so Scott should be really happy with that bar performance from SUU.
Scotty Bauman still chasing that elusive first MRGC championship. They did have a WAC championship back in 2010. And Maddie, looking big picture here, this is the last time these 4 teams will compete against each other, with BYU off to the Big 12, a great gymnastics conference in its own right, and they're getting certainly a great team and a great program in BYU. But you have to ask the question, what will the MRGCs look like going forward? Will there just be 3 teams? Will somebody get added? The MRGC is one of just 2 Division I gymnastics only conferences in the entire country. What do you make of what we might see after this year?
That's the question we're all asking, right? I wish I knew the answer. It would be a really interesting competition just to have 3 teams, because it would be, I think, the smallest gymnastics conference in the country with just 3. But I mean, still 3 very dynamic teams to have in a conference. So I'm really looking forward to the announcement of whether these remaining 3 teams will be put in different conferences, or if another team will join. Who knows? But I mean, the talent in this conference is astounding. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
We'll step aside for 90 seconds. When we come back, rotation number 2. We'll fill you in right here on ESPN Plus. Back inside the AFX, Spencer McLaughlin, Megan and Maddie McBride with you as we get set for rotation number 2. Southern Utah will be on the balance beam. BYU will swing over to the vault. Boise State will have their floor routines up here in the second rotation, and Utah State will be over on the bars. It is BYU in the lead with a 49.225 in that first rotation right now. Southern Utah at a 49.1 right behind them, and Utah State at 48.9. Boise State at 48.775. Keeping things rolling here in the 2023 MRGC Championships. And this is Shai Murakami up first on the beam for Southern Utah, and over on the vault for BYU, Sophie Dudley is up in the top right portion of your screen.
Up first, another beautiful Yurchenko full of the night. Great chest up on the landing. I don't think she took a hop or anything. I think that would count as a stick, so great start for the Cougars.
On beam, Shailin Murakami.
Off to a very strong start on the beam.
Definitely.
Which has been an up and down event for Southern Utah this year. They're top 20 in the country in terms of average score on the beam, but they had a 2 or 3 week stretch where they were regularly counting falls, but they are off to a sizzling start here tonight.
Shailin Murakami is always a great starting competitor to have on any of the events she competes. Really not much wrong with that beam routine. Awesome start for the Thunderbirds tonight.
We've got our first 10 chant of the night. Unlikely to be the last. Up on floor, that's Alyssa Vulaj, who will look to respond after her fall on the beam for Boise State. And Jessica Gutierrez is up on the uneven bars for the Aggies.
Gutierrez has started off strong with a toe on Maloney connected to a pack. A little bit short on that last handstand. But a huge double A dismount. Just a little bit of a hot back of control, but starting off the Aggies strong on their second rotation.
Over on floor for that first pass, we saw a unique 1.5 into a punch front full layout, which is a lot more difficult than just a front layout, so that should add some bonus to her start value. Coming off of beam, which is a usually calmer event compared to the other three, it can be hard to move from beam to floor where you have to have such high energy all the time, but looks like Alyssa is taking that in stride. She's having a great floor routine so far. Going into that final pass, round with back handspring, double pike, great control on that landing, good chest up. Altogether, really clean routine for Alyssa and a great start for the Broncos on their second rotation.
Well, so far we have not had a score eclipse the 9-9 threshold. I'd be surprised if that continued all night long. Trista Goodman with a 9.875 on bars for Southern Utah. Rebecca Bean Ripley a 9.875 for BYU in her floor routine. Those are the highest scores we've seen so far.
Over on vault, a unique vault, round off full on back handspring into a tuck. That is a 10-0 start value, and she just had a small hop on the landing, so that should be a great score.
That's Madison Racely Patton over there for BYU. This is Rachel Smith, the fifth-year senior on the balance beam for the Flippin' Birds.
Rachel's looking so strong. You can tell she's a veteran competitor on beam. Started off with a unique series, round off to a layout step out, and just executed it flawlessly as she's going into her dismount here. With just a little hop, honestly, again, another really no deduction routine from the Thunderbirds, so we're eagerly awaiting that score.
Brantley Lucas, the freshman from Atlanta, is up on the floor for Boise State, and Utah State over on the uneven bars sends a graduate student in Grace Rojas.
Grace Rojas starting with a beautiful health cast handstand. Another toe on Maloney, straight to a bail to handstand. Judges on bars are looking for handstands, just like that one. Tight form throughout the routine and a stuck landing, which is exactly what Grace Rojas delivered tonight. Amazing routine from the Aggies.
Over on floor, we have Brantley Lucas for Boise. So far, we've seen a round of back handspring double pike and the required leap pass as she's getting ready to go into her second pass. Round off 1.5 punch front layout. Great amplitude on that first 1.5 and on the layout. Something that judges are looking for on floor is dynamic tumbling passes with good amplitude, good control on the landing, good chest up on the landing, and of course the performance aspect on floor. Going into her final pass, round off back handspring, double tuck. Little bit of a low chest on the landing, made her take a step forward, but altogether, really clean routine for Boise.
So 2 routines and 2 vaults in the books here in this second rotation. And we go to gymnast number 3 for each of these MRGC teams. Ellie Cachola, who had a career high on that very balance beam back on January 20th with a 9.925 is up. And that's Sydney Benson vaulting for the Broncos.
Sydney Benson with a huge Yurchenko full, great block off the vault table, great stick straight throughout the vault and a stuck landing.
She's the reigning co-vault specialist of the week. Shared those honors with her teammate Alex Mason last week.
And Ellie Cachola on beam for the Thunderbirds with a stunning routine so far. Just solid on every skill that she does. I love watching her beam, just so calm and controlled. And though only a freshman or a sophomore, excuse me, she's just so experienced, so controlled on this event, so it's no wonder she finds herself in this lineup week after week. Rounding up for the dismount, round off 1.5. Little step. Again, not much wrong with that routine. The Thunderbirds really are bringing it on this event tonight. Hopping over to Utah State on bars, a massive Tkachev. A little bit short on that handstand. Free hip into a bail to handstand. Getting ready for this dismount.
That's the freshman Avery Bibby on bars. The floor routine at the top of your screen belongs to Emma Loyam of Boise State.
We saw Emma Loyam on beam earlier, and we just saw a really unique first pass, round-off whip to double tuck. That is significantly more difficult than a round-off back handspring double tuck because you have to get that punch angle just right in order to get that double tuck around. A new rule in the NCAA on floor this year is that if you have enough bonus in your tumbling passes and in your leap pass combined, you can do a 2-pass floor routine. Typically we see a 3-pass floor routine from most gymnasts, but having that 2-pass floor routine is an advantage because you have less room for deduction if you have less skills to compete. Going into that final pass, round off back handspring, double pike. Again, another great control on that landing and a great routine for the Broncos.
Rebecca Bean Ripley is up on vault. She set a career high with a 9.85 in her vault last week in a loss to Arizona for BYU, but put up a good score of a 196.05. Another such score here tonight would likely secure a regional appearance for the Cougars.
Rebecca does a really unique vault. She does a front entry into a front pike off the vault, and you can see just how much control she had on that stuck landing. So great vault for the BYU Cougars.
Over on the balance beam for Southern Utah, it's the 2021 MRGC Freshman of the Year, Aubrey Schwartz, now a junior in her career in Cedar City.
No questions asked on that first series. A back handspring step out, layout, step out from Aubrey. A little bit of a bubble on that toe turn, and they might look easy, but folks who are watching, they are not. They are harder than they look. Beautiful back layout, step out to a beat jump connected. No questions on that connection, which is something the judges are looking for. If you have even the slightest pause in between your connected skills, that will be a deduction and potentially a 10th or 2 off of your start value. Here she is going into her dismount. A stuck gainer full. Great routine from Aubrey Schwartz.
Well, Southern Utah off to a blistering fast pace on the balance beam. Ellie Cachola with our first 9.9 of these championships. Murakami and Smith with a pair of 9.825s. And now over on the bars, you're watching Brianna Brooks.
And I hope you were all watching that first release move. It was massive. She really extended through her legs. And a stuck landing. That should be a huge score for Brianna Brooks for the Aggies.
A look at Elena McGovern's first pass on the floor for Boise State.
Another unique pass from the Broncos. She went front layout 1.5 twist into a back layout step out. Very difficult front pass that'll add a lot of bonus into her start value. with any away meet for any of these teams, it's always difficult to bring the energy on floor when you don't have that home crowd with you. But that's why it's always fun to have your teammates on the side cheering for you, dancing with you. Definitely brings the energy for these gymnasts who are on the road today. Going into that last pass, round up back handspring, double tuck. Just a little bit short on that landing, had to take a step forward. But Boise is really bringing the heat on floor today. Really nice, consistent routines.
We've seen a lot of really strong floor routines so far in the first couple of rotations. BYU rather, had a 49.225. And they're up now on the vault with the freshman Kylie Aquinto. And Southern Utah sends Haley Voltaggio over to the balance beam.
Kylie Aquinto has been a staple in BYU's vault lineup, and you are about to see why. Beautiful Yurchenko full. There was really nothing wrong with that vault. She stuck it like a lawn dart. Beautiful vault.
We have Haley Voltaggio for the Thunderbirds on beam. Starting out with a back handspring step out, layout, step out. Just a little bit of a bobble, but not too much deduction on that first series. Acquired leap pass, a split jump to a layout step out, which you saw her do out of a back handspring earlier, but standing is significantly harder to get all the way around, so that takes a lot of leg strength. No question or bobble on that leap pass. Little bit of a rush on that toe turn. You can see her kind of grabbing the beam with her toes. But only minor deductions so far for Haley Voltaggio's routine as she goes into her standing round off 1.5 dismount. A little bit of a hop forward. Very impressive routine for Haley Voltaggio.
Danny Kirsten, the sophomore for Utah State from down the road in Las Vegas, is up on the bars, and over on the floor you're looking at Courtney Blackson, who had a 9.9 last week for the Broncos.
Danny Kirsten's form has been remarkable so far, hitting all of her handstands, keeping that straight body. We haven't seen any pikes in her handstand. And has had great connections as she's going into this blind full dismount. And a stick for the Aggies. They are looking so great on bars tonight.
Over on floor for Courtney, we saw a very difficult first pass. Front handspring, front double full, connected to a punch front. That is an E pass, so that is one of the more difficult passes you're going to be seeing on floor tonight. Again, adds a ton of difficulty, so adds a ton of bonus to her start value.
Now the scores of 9-8 and above are just falling like a rainstorm right now. Everybody at the top of their game so far tonight. Exactly what you would expect in this conference.
Definitely.
In the league championships.
There's been amazing gymnastics here tonight, and we're only 2 rotations in.
Going into that final pass for Courtney, round off 2.5, so much control on that landing. A very difficult pass in general, but especially at the end of a floor routine. Again, another great floor routine for the Broncos. Everyone's bringing their best gymnastics to the floor tonight, and it's awesome.
Really, since that opening beam fall from Boise State, we have not seen a whole lot of large errors by any team on any event so far. The anchor slots up again. A pair of seniors, Alex Mason on the vault in the top right corner of your screen.
Over on vault, we see another 10-0 start value, a Yurchenko 1.5. Looks like she didn't quite get the block angle she wanted off of that vault, so she did take a step backwards to compensate for it. But again, that's a 10-0 start value, so she does have a little bit of advantage over the other 9.95 start values.
The good news for BYU, the 5 scores in front of Alex Mason, already totaling over a 49. Carly McLean in the anchor slot, competing without a fall in front of her. That is a dangerous competitor.
You can hear the cheers from the crowd and the gymnasts watching. She's been nailing every skill she's doing. I love how she just throws her hands down after she hits a skill. She's so confident, so controlled up there, and obviously very, very experienced. Has a toe turn and a dismount remaining in this quite flawless routine. Hoping for a stick out of this round off 1.5 dismount from Carly. And a stick from Carly McLean. I expected my hair more 10 chance after that routine. And there they are.
We've got our second 10 chance of the night. One of the better routines we've seen so far. We'll see if it's one of the better scores we've seen so far.
We have Lexi Aragon on bars for the Aggies, the final competitor. A free hip into another Tkachev. Beautiful form and just such a wide straddle. A little bit short on that bail, which will be a deduction. But she's going into her dismount. Nice handstand there at the end. You see the coach there kind of guiding her through. To a stick on the landing. Great end routine for the Aggies.
Over on floor, we have Sydney Leach. She started off with a beautiful round off back handspring double pike. Great control on that landing, and for that second pass, front handspring, front layout, front full, meets that requirement for that front pass.
And they just announced the score for Carly McLean on the balance beam, a 9.925 for the second straight week. That matches her career high.
And if you didn't see, one of the judges did give her a 10, which is so impressive.
Final pass for Boise State on floor tonight. Round back handspring double tuck. Looks like she wasn't as confident on that landing, but she was able to control it. Overall, really solid 6 routines for Boise tonight. Not much to complain about for their coach, I think.
So Sydney Leitch rounds things out in rotation number 2. We'll tally up some scores and let you know where things stand when we come back in Cedar City. Southern Utah has put themselves into the lead with a 49.3 on the balance beam, headlined by a 9.925 from Carly McLean. One of the judges gave her a perfect 10, but the other 3 saw it as a 9.9, so it's a 9.925 for the 5th-year senior. But she is once again scheduled to compete in the all-around tonight and already off to a sensational start, which is what we've come to expect from Carly McLean. But we've come to expect some really strong gymnastics in this conference week in and week out. The dual meets, the tri meets, where these teams go to compete to. It really sets them up well for an event like this to showcase their best stuff, and every team showing that so far tonight.
Definitely. I have seen nothing but great gymnastics tonight. That's all I can say. And you know, for a small conference like this, it's so impressive to see just the talent and, you know, pristine gymnastics that we've seen from everybody here. It's so impressive for such a small conference that sometimes can get overlooked.
Yeah, Southern Utah is in the lead right now. They have a 98.4 through 2 rotations. BYU right on their heels at 98.275. And then Boise State and Utah State tied with 97.925s right now. So, Maddie, as we go into rotation number 3, still very much anybody's meet.
Oh, absolutely. And Megan and I were chatting before this. You know, in conference championships, there are rankings. These teams are ranked higher and lower than each other. But really, that's all put aside because it's anyone's game tonight. Anyone that does their best gymnastics and puts their best forward is going to take home the championship. So every team's got to be on their game. And they absolutely have been. So we are really looking forward to these last 2 events.
And Utah State, the reigning champs, they come in as the lowest ranked team with their NQS score so far. But they're showing you that you can never sleep on the Aggies, even under their first-year head coach, who has done a really nice job with the team, but certainly would like to end the season as strong as possible. And you never know things can happen. Crazy things can happen. Moving up 9 spots in the NQS, not likely for Utah State, but still plenty to compete for, not to mention a conference championship at least.
Definitely. For what I've seen from them tonight is nothing but greatness. They've been putting out their best gymnastics on their first 2 rotations, and I think if they continue with the mindset they have from the last 2 rotations into their last 2 events, I think we could see some really great gymnastics coming forward for them.
Meanwhile, the stakes highest for Boise State and BYU tonight. They'll await their final regional fate tomorrow once all the conference championships across the country have concluded, but they are right squarely just inside the bubble. Have to use the word bubble in the month of March, of course, but they are number 35 Boise State, number 34 BYU. The top 36 go to regionals, but BYU off to quite the start so far, and Boise State solid as well.
Definitely. Like Megan has said, there's dynamic gymnastics happening down there tonight. Every gymnast putting out their strongest routines, and it's just a delight to watch and to see all of it happening at the same time, so we hope you all are enjoying this too.
We've seen a couple of scores eclipse the 9-9 threshold, but it's been mostly 9-8s and above so far. We'll come back in 90 seconds and we'll bring you rotation number 3 after this. Third rotation just about set to get underway. Southern Utah will have the floor routines, the student sections out in full force as usual here in Cedar City. Utah State will be on the balance beam, Boise State over on the vault, and BYU will have the bars here in rotation number 3, with everything very, very tight right now. And all these head coaches looking for the very best, and they've been getting the best so far from their gymnasts through the first 2 rotations. We're halfway home, still halfway to go. Glad you could join us. Spencer McLaughlin with you, joined by Megan and Maddie McBride. And our first vault for Boise State belongs to the youngest of the Coe sisters, Sydney Coe. Her 2 older sisters both on Southern Utah's roster.
Starting off the Broncos with a Yurchenko full. Great height off the vault, just a small hop backwards, but her chest up was on the landing, so a great start for the Broncos on vault for their 3rd rotation.
And this is Olivia Ostendorf, who fell on the beam last week, but not something that you expect to see again for the senior, whose season high came back on February 24th with a 9.8. And those have been the scores that you need to count and stay competitive so far tonight. And a good start for Ostendorf.
Really dynamic series, back handspring step out, layout, step out, which will probably be the most common acrobatic series you will see on beam tonight and at most gymnastics competitions, but she did it very, very well. No deduction on that landing. She accomplishes her front side move requirement with a front summy, a little bit of a dropped shoulder there. That will be a deduction. Round off 1.5 dismount. Hop forward, but a hit routine to start the Aggies off on their 3rd rotation.
Southern Utah is on the floor, starting things off with Ellie Cachola, who's already got a 9-9 to her name tonight with her beam rotation. And Alex Mason is up on bars first for BYU and Coach Young.
From the routines I've seen from Alex Mason this season, she's just such a dynamic gymnast. We saw her earlier on the vault, and here she is on bars. Starting off with a toe-on to a toe-on Maloney. We saw she was just a little bit far on that catch, but she did hang on to a pirouette to handstand. And she'll hope for a stuck landing on this dismount. A double layout, a little bit of a step back, but a hit routine to start off the Cougars.
And over on floor, we have Ellie Cachola, the formidable sophomore from SUU. So far, we've seen beautiful first pass, round off back handspring, double tuck, and just barely we saw a nailed second pass. Great amplitude, great control on the landing as well. Going into her final pass, front Rudy, control, great test on the landing. Not much wrong from Ellie Cachola on the first floor routine for SUU.
Emma Loyam is up next for Boise State, getting ready for her vault. Third event she's competed in tonight for the Broncos.
We saw a great floor routine earlier from Emma. Let's see what she has to give us on vault tonight. She does a Yurchenko half twist. It looks like she came out a little bit early, so she did have a lower landing and took quite a big step backwards. So that will be a deduction.
Here we have Jenna Eagles for the Aggies, and she's been nailing her routine thus far. Just looking super confident up there. Great switch leap to split jump, and something to note is the judges will be looking for 180 splits on those. Anything less will be a deduction. You round off 1.5 dismount, and she got the stick. Hit routine for the Aggies.
Southern Utah sends Haley Voltaggio out to the floor. Scotty Bauman entrusting his junior as usual off a 9.875 last week. Over on the bars, it's Sydney Benson for Guard Young and BYU.
Sydney starting from the back side of the bars. You'll see gymnasts start in different places, and that's just all depending on the release move that they have to start their routine. So here she has a toe on to a huge Tkachev. She does have a little bit of leg separation on that swing out of it. Here she is going into her final handstand to the dismount. Huge double A with the stick.
Over on floor, we have Haley Voltaggio. And from what I've seen so far, I have not seen hardly any deductions from the junior on floor. Huge dynamic tumbling, getting that student section and her team in on the dancing.
And Southern Utah has not had the MRGCs here since 2018. And the fans relishing in that opportunity tonight.
Going into that last pass for Haley. Round off back handspring, double tuck. So controlled on that landing, huge amplitude. Altogether, a great dynamic routine for SUU. They are on a roll tonight.
Ellie Cachola earns a 9.85 on her floor routine for Southern Utah. We'll see what Voltaggio gets for the Flippin' Birds. Third gymnasts up. Heart of the order, this is Alyssa Vulage for Boise State.
Another unique vault from Boise. Yurchenko full on pike off, 10-0 start value, and a stuck landing. That should be a great score for Boise on vault today.
And Brianna Brooks up for Utah State. Head coach Kristen White, the 2022 WCGA Assistant of the Year a couple seasons ago.
Brianna Brooks looking so good on this beam routine. A very unique series to start out. A front aerial connected to a back handspring split down into, I think, a back extension roll on the beam, which is quite unique as well.
And it's a 9.9 for Haley Voltaggio with her floor routine, and that's garnering a lot of applause from the Thunderbird fans here in Cedar City.
Brianna going into her dismount, a back handspring gainer to a full with a stuck landing. Beautiful routine. I only saw that one bobble on her leap pass, but otherwise it was really a phenomenal routine.
Kylie Akinto up on the bars for Guard Young and the Cougars. Southern Utah over on the floor sends out Emma Ingracia, who's worked her way into the floor lineup this year and has rewarded Coach Bauman with some excellent performances, including a career best 9.9 back on February the 2nd.
Here we have Kylie Quinto on the bars, who we also saw on the vault earlier. Another toe-on connected to a Maloney, had a huge backswing out of it with a great handstand pirouette. As she's gearing up for this dismount, nice held handstand. Super powerful double leg. Really great routine from Kylie Quinto tonight.
And over on floor, we have Emma Ingracia. On her first pass, she did a front through to a double pike. She had a little bit of extra power on that landing, so she did take quite a bit of a hop and a step backwards. That will be a deduction. But here we see her going into her second pass. Little friends action going on. Huge round with that handspring double tuck. She did have that chest up on the landing, but came out of the flip a little early, leading her to step forward. But altogether, another great routine for the Flippin' Birds.
Fourth vaulter for Boise State is Adriana Pop, and the fourth beam worker in this third rotation for Utah State is Sophie Sullivan, who owns the 3 highest scores in BYU gymnastics history on the balance beam.
Another huge unique vault from Boise. Just a little bit of a hop backwards, but with that 10-0 start value, that does give them quite the advantage over the other teams.
Sophie Sullivan on beam with another unique series, a front aerial to a back pike. She did have a little bit of a short landing and took a step forward, but did stay on the beam. And that is a very hard beam series to execute. Nice toe turn. A round off 1.5 dismount. A little bit of a step back, but a hit routine for the Aggies.
Aubrey Schwartz is up next on floor for Southern Utah. She's already having an excellent night with a pair of 9/8s on her bars and beam routines. And will look to be in that range or above it on the floor exercise. Lindsay Hunter is up next for BYU on the bars.
Another bar routine starting on the back of the bars. Starts off with a handstand that's a little bit short, but recovers with a massive Takachi release move. To a free hip handstand. Good handstand hold on that bail. She's winding up for her dismount. Nice hit handstand there. A lot of power into this double A. You can see she threw her arms out just a little early, so she had that step forward.
Over on floor, we have Aubrey Schwartzy, and for her first pass, we saw the front handspring, front double pull, which is an E-pass, very difficult to execute, and she had great control on the landing. Going into that final pass on floor. Front handspring, front Rudy, into a back layout step out. Nailed that landing. SUU is hitting one great routine after the other.
Voltaggio a 9.9, Conchola a 9.85. Schwartz figures to be in that range based on what we just saw. Boise State sends Emily Lopez, 4-time MRGC Vault Specialist of the Week this year, up.
And you can see why a Yurchenko full, a vault you've seen quite a bit tonight, but she executed that perfectly. That is a textbook Yurchenko full with a beautiful stuck landing.
We have Carly Bales on beam for the Aggies. A lot of front aerial to a connected beam series for the Aggies. That was a front aerial to a connected back handspring step out for Carly. Switch lead tuck 3/4, no questions there. Looking very solid on every one of her skills on the beam. front aerial to a split jump. And you notice that she did have 2 front aerials in a routine. You are allowed to have 2 up 1 skill, but not 3. So she is under that requirement. Finishing with a round off tuck 1.5 dismount. A little bit of an over rotation, so a big step, but the rest of her routine was flawless.
Well, Carly McLean's one of the best all-around gymnasts in the country. You could very easily make the case the floor is where she shines brightest. And she's been a star in this program for the last 5 years. And this her final floor routine in front of the home crowd here in Cedar City.
Any team in the country would want Carly McLean in their floor lineup, so we're considered really lucky that we have her in SUU's lineup.
Meanwhile, Anissa Alvarado getting set to begin her bars routine in the top left corner of your screen.
Alvarado, I want to say, has scored a majority of the 9.9s throughout her season this year. She is a solid bar competitor, and you'll see why right here. Just straight body and everything that she does. Hidden handstands, extend all the way through her toes. Just beautiful bar work here. Going into her last handstand for the dismount. Double A. To almost a stick, just a step back, but a great routine.
And over on floor, we've seen Carly McLean doing what she does best on floor. Really clean, dynamic first and second pass, and she's winding up for her final pass on floor in the AFEC for the last time. Round effect handspring, double tuck, great chest up on the landing, great control, great routine for Carly and great routine for SUU over on floor.
And a well-deserved round of applause from the crowd here in Cedar City, who have come to appreciate what she's done for the program for the last 5 years. Been right at the heart of everything they've done. On pace for their 10th consecutive regional appearance. Last vaulter of the night for BYU is Courtney Blackson.
Huge 1.5 Yurchenko for Boise. Just the tiniest little hop backwards, but really great amplitude, really great chest on the landing. That should be a great score for Boise.
Danny Kirsten rounds things out for Utah State on the balance beam.
Just like Southern Utah before them on beam, they have not had any falls before, so she is feeling nice and easy, comfortable up there, just hitting another routine for her team, and she's doing a great job so far. I believe she just has her dismount. Very unique, a gainer front full, which is very difficult to get her body around. 6x6 routines for the Aggies on beam. Great third rotation.
Last up in the third rotation, Taylor Gull on the floor for Southern Utah. And BYU over on the bars has got the sophomore from Prescott Valley, Arizona, Anna Bramblett, who did not do her bars routine last week.
Last up on floor, we have Taylor Gull. We've had 5x5 hit routines for SUU so far. One of them is a 9.65 that they would like to drop, but 5x5 means that she doesn't have to worry. She's got no pressure.
Anna Bramblett on the bars, Bramblett started from underneath, behind the low bar, going underneath to get into a huge blind Jaeger, connected bail, and you see her toes and feet were just glued together, which can be difficult in that connected bail skill. Here she is going into her dismount. Really, really big double A. Wow, gorgeous routine from Anna Bramblett to finish out BYU's bar rotation.
Over on floor, we had a unique second pass from Taylor. Round off 1.5, front layout half into a split jump. going into that final pass for SUU tonight. Huge double back. Looks like she did have a little bit of a bounce on that landing, leading her to take quite a big of a hop back, but a hit routine, which is what they're looking for.
Now the score's just continuing to build. McLean a 9.925 on the floor for Southern Utah, and plenty of more great scores will get you caught up and set for the final rotation in the 2023 MRGC Championships right after this. Southern Utah came into these championships with the highest NQS of any of these four outstanding gymnastics programs this year, and they take the lead into the final rotation. Southern Utah on floor there in the third with a 49.175. BYU on the bars, a 49.125, led by a 9.875 from the freshman Kylie Akinto, who's having an excellent night. Boise State on the vault had their best rotation of the night with a 49.175, headlined by the 9.9 from Courtney Blackson, and Utah State over on the beam just misses that 49 threshold with a 48.925. So going into the final rotation, it's Southern Utah in the lead with a 147.575, BYU in second with a 147.4 even. Utah State is in last with a 146.85, and Boise State with a 147.1 going into this final rotation. So it's a tall mountain for Utah State to climb here to try and capture their second straight conference championship, but you never know what can happen. But it seems like it's even more difficult given how well everyone seems to be performing tonight.
Right, every routine we've seen so far, just great gymnastics all around from every team. On Boise for vault, we saw great dynamic vaults, a lot of 10-0 start values, which gives them an advantage, not to mention all of their great landings. And on floor, just one great floor routine after the other. Clean bar routines, clean hit beam routines from everybody. And from what Spencer said on the scores, you can see just how close each team is to each other. So in this last rotation, it's up to every gymnast to do their gymnastics. It's up to every hit routine. Every last deduction counts at this point.
Well, BYU will be up on the balance beam. Southern Utah will be on the vault, and those are the two that are battling for the 2023 MRGC crown right now. And Maddie, the vault has been kind of the other apparatus along with the beam that has given Southern Utah some issues at times, particularly with their landings. That's where they've had the most deductions this year. If they're able to execute and get 5 clean landings on their vaults here, they could be in a really good position for their first ever MRGC championship.
Definitely, and I can agree with you there. Vault is one of those events, I dare say it might be one of the hardest, because you have so much power, you have to get so much distance from the vault, and then you have to stick a landing after having so much power and amplitude. That just is a lot of difficulty. So if SUU can deliver on each vault with just distance, stuck landings, and height, they'll be in a great position to end out this meet tonight.
Southern Utah's lead is just 0.175 going into this final rotation. Back in 90 seconds, we'll have it for you right here in Cedar City. Don't go away.
Long time.
Southern Utah will be on the vault. BYU will be on the beam for this final rotation of the 2023 MRGC Championships. Boise State on the bars, and that, of course, leaves Utah State currently in 4th place on the floor here for rotation number 4. And it can be a strange feeling to end on vault when that's the one you're so accustomed to starting with, especially here at home for Southern Utah.
Definitely, usually in dual meets, which is usually where gymnasts are competing most of the time, you're either first up on vault or second up on vault. So to end on vault, an apparatus where it takes a lot of power, a lot of energy, you've already competed almost an entire meet, so you might be a little tired, but you know, you got to bring the energy to end on vault, which is difficult for sure.
Well, all the teams have been bringing the energy all night long as best they can, all 4 of them chasing after that conference championship this year. For Boise State and BYU, they're looking to lock up a regionals appearance. They're on a pretty good track to do so, but now we begin the final rotation, and the sophomore from Owasso, Oklahoma, Ellie Cachola, who's got a 9.85 with her floor and a 9.9 with her beam routine so far, starts things off for the Flippin' Birds.
Ellie is a great person to have start off your vault lineup. Beautiful Yurchenko full. Lawn dart stuck landing. That is exactly how you want to start your vault rotation.
Jaws are dropping up here. That was beautiful.
BYU on the beam is turning to Alex Mason, who has not done her beam routine the last couple of weeks. Has also competed on vault and bars this year, and so far tonight for the Cougars, she's garnered a 9.75 with her vault and 9.8 with her bars routine.
Over in the top left corner, you see that replay on vault. Just such clean gymnastics from Ellie tonight.
And she's getting a healthy round of applause from the AFEC fans here in Cedar City. We have not yet been informed what the score is, but we'll let you know as Southern Utah and BYU battle it out.
That was Lauren Ono with a fall on her triple series. Again, a very difficult thing to start your beam routine with, the triple series, which have been more plentiful tonight than I think I might have led you guys off to believe, so I apologize for that.
Ono was originally scheduled to go 6th in the beam lineup for Coach Young. Instead, she goes first, and unfortunately begins with a fall. And with the scores so tight here in this last rotation, that will really ratchet up the pressure on the 5 gymnasts that will follow her.
Absolutely. But from what we've seen from BYU this season, their beam lineup has been really strong, so we can hope to see 5 hit routines following Ono's fall here. So here we see her finishing up, going into a dismount, cartwheel gainer full, a little bit of a hop.
Ellie Cacciolo, by the way, just set a personal best with her 9.9 score on the vault. What a start for Southern Utah. And on the bars, this is Boise State, and they're starting with Talia Little, the junior from Rochester Gymnastics Academy in New York.
Looking very solid so far. Atoan connected to Atoan Maloney, straight to a pack. Really clean. A little bit of a question there on that blind full. The finishes with the landing, just a step backwards. Not a bad start for Boise on bars.
Peyton Gatzlaff is up first on floor, and her first pass is in the books for the Aggies.
She started off with a great round back handspring double tuck. Looks like her punching was a little bit off, so she didn't get quite as much amplitude as she was looking for, but she was able to pull off a clean, controlled landing. Going into the second pass. Front layout 1.5 called a Rudy into a split jump out of it. Another difficult front pass because you have to get the right punch angle going into it in order to land it correctly. Going into that last pass, round off at 1.5. Punch front layout, looks like she over-rotated that front 1.5, so she didn't get quite the right punch angle, ended up sitting it down, so the next 5 routines for Utah State will have to hit their floor routines.
The last gymnastics that Carly McLean will ever do here in Cedar City in a Southern Utah Leo will be her vault, completing the all-around once again, as she's done every week in this, her 5th year senior season.
Great clean Yurchenko full from Carly McLean. Huge high off the vault, just a little bit of a hop backwards, but what a legacy Carly McLean has left for SCU Gymnastics. We'll be sad to see her go.
And here tonight as well, a 9.85 on bars and a pair of 9.925s for McLean on her beam and floor routines. So BYU needs a response, and they turn to Madison Racely Patton.
She's had a solid routine thus far. Great leap connection there. Switch leap to a split jump. Again, looking for those 180 splits. Here she goes into what might be her series. A flick lay with a great landing. No question there. Like Spencer said, looking for a response after Ono's fall, hoping to have 5 hit routines. Every routine, every skill counts. Any extra bobble or step could cost them the championship. Here she's finishing with the round off 1.5 dismount. A little hot forward, but a routine that the Cougars needed following the first fall.
Next up for Boise State is Erin Morden on the bars, and over on the floor it's Brianna Brooks for Utah State.
Starting from in between the bars, going into a blind Pike Jaeger, beautiful form, to a dynamic, beautiful handstand bail. It's really impressive to see bails to handstand where you hold it, because that's a lot of power into those skills. The stuck landing made it look so easy. Beautiful routine for Boise Broncos on bars.
And over on floor, we see Brianna Brooks for Utah State, my apologies.
USU, you just got to swap one S and one U.
There we go.
And you got it.
First pass, we saw a front layout, front Rudy. And just like on beam with BYU, we're going to want to see these next 5 hit routines for Utah State in order to compensate for that fall on that first routine.
Carly McLean, meanwhile, a 9.825 with her vault. She has matched her career best all-around performance with a 39.525 tonight, which is the 3rd highest all-around score in Southern Utah gymnastics history.
And over on floor, we saw a front layout, front full for that second pass. A little bit low amplitude on that front full, but a hit routine nonetheless for the Aggies on floor.
Kate Coe is up next for Southern Utah. Also her final vault in front of the home fans. Meanwhile, on the beam, BYU will send out Mina Margraf, the sophomore from Spring, Texas.
Caitlin Coe is one of the few in SU's lineup that does a 10-0 start value vault. Huge Yurchenko 1.5. Such great height off the vault with just a small step forward. Honestly, another great vault for SUU. That should be a great score.
Mina Margraf catching that connection, but just barely, just a little bit of a drop shoulder on that front aerial, but otherwise staying on the beam, which is what the Cougars are looking for.
She's plenty comfortable in this arena. Her career best 9.925 on the balance beam. Came back on February 3rd here against Southern Utah in a loss to the Thunderbirds. And the Cougars looking for revenge, but Southern Utah making it very difficult to come back with the way their first 3 vaults have gone.
It's always exciting to see a sophomore with such high scores for their career highs, because they still have 2 seasons left with their team to improve and get better. So starting off with 9.9s as career highs is so impressive. Front full dismount to a stuck landing. Awesome routine for Mina Margraf on beam.
Jenna Eagles is up next on the floor for Utah State. Boise State, meanwhile, sends Elena McGovern over to the uneven bars.
A little bit short on that first handstand, just a little bit of pike in the hips. I believe one of the 2 gingers we've seen tonight out of every gymnast connected to a bail, where she was a little bit short on that bail, but here she is winding into this dismount. Really great height to a stuck dismount. Boise is really bringing it with those sticks in this, their last rotation.
And over on floor, we saw a very beautiful front layout, front punch full. Going into that second pass. Round off back handspring double tuck. Great control on that landing. Maybe just a little bit of a low chest, but so far really clean, really dynamic gymnastics so far for Utah State in this floor routine.
Now we are halfway through rotation number 4, and so far Southern Utah is widening the gap between themselves and BYU. We continue to wait scores to roll in. The Cougars at the moment counting a fall, but right now Kayla Pardue up on vault for Southern Utah.
Another Yurchenko 1.5. Great landing, great height. Really just a textbook Yurchenko 1.5 for Kayla Pardue. Another 10-0 start value for SUU. Should garner a great score.
BYU's up on the balance beam with Sophie Dudley.
Starting out with a great series, another back handspring step out, layout, step out. No question on that landing. Sometimes after a fall, you can see gymnasts hesitate a little bit in their approach, but Sophie Dudley is looking strong and confident in each skill that she's attacking. Looking very good halfway through BYU's beam lineup. To a side aerial there. Round off 1.5 dismount and a stick. That should be an amazing score for the Cougars.
Over to the floor, and Utah State sending out Ariel Toomey. And on the bars, it'll be Kylie Hamby for Boise State.
Starting from behind the bar into a toe-on ray connected to a bail. Those are really hard connections to make on bars, especially out of a skill like a ray. Barely a hop forward on the dismount, fighting for the stick. Really dynamic bar routine for Boise.
Over on floor, Ariel's going into her first tumbling pass. A front Rudy into a layout step out. You can see just how clean and tight her legs are together and straight in that Rudy.
And she's got the mat over there in the corner, much further in than some of the other gymnasts. What goes into that thinking?
Right, it just depends on where you punch going into that first pass. So having a mat on the floor is not a deduction. It's just a nice way to save your ankles, especially after a long, hard season all of these gymnasts have had. Going into her final pass. A front full, not something you see very often in a tumbling pass, but she executed it perfectly. Really great dynamic floor routine by Ariel. Utah State should be really happy with how their floor is going, especially starting off with a fall.
Another fifth-year senior that Coach Bauman and his staff convinced to come back, Rachel Smith.
She does a round off, full on into a tuck off the vault. Another 10-0 start value, quite a big step backwards, but again, having that 10-0 start value versus the 9.95 start value we see from a Yurchenko full does give her an advantage of scoring a little bit higher than those other athletes.
There you get a look at one of the 30 best beam workers in the country this year in Elise Rollins. She's notched a 9.9 in each of her last 2 beam routines coming into these MRGC championships. And if the Cougars are going to mount a comeback, they will need that or above down the stretch.
Elise Rollins, I believe, has been a staple in the BYU beam lineup since she's been a freshman, which is so impressive. And you'll see that impressive beam series, a front aerial to a back handspring step out, layout, step out. Another triple series that we've seen tonight. I also just want to say you've been seeing a lot of 9.85 scores, which is so impressive, especially with having 4 judges, meaning the gymnasts have been getting either 9.85s from the top judges or 9.9s. So a lot of high scores tonight, and this should be one of them. Elise Rollins finishing with a stuck landing for the Cougars.
Should be an excellent score for the senior Rollins. And Courtney Blackson gets set to step up on the bars for Boise State, and Utah State on the floor rolls with Olivia Ostendorf.
Courtney starting with a nice cast to handstand into a handstand veil. And usually gymnasts start with a release move, so we'll be seeing her release move right here, which I saw in warm-ups and was massive. Such a big release move, so unique. Going into her dismount with so much power. A little hot, but amazing routine for Boise.
And over on floor for Olivia, for her first pass, we saw a front layout, front punch Rudy. Very difficult front tumbling pass. Going into that second pass over on floor. Round off back handspring, double tuck, great control. Utah State is doing a great job of bouncing back from that first fall on floor. As expected, Utah State is a great team.
Over on the beam, Elise Rollins matches her career best with a 9.975 with her balance beam routine.
Again,
we'll see if that's enough to keep BYU in it. Southern Utah putting up some high scores on vault. And for the final vault of the year for the Flippin' Birds, it's Haley Voltaggio.
A great Yurchenko full from Haley Voltaggio. Great stick from the Flippin' Birds, and overall just huge vaults for SUU. That should garner great scores for them.
Southern Utah already with a 9.875 from Ko and 9.9 from Conchola on this vault rotation. And this is Eliza Millar, a late substitution from Coach Young into the beam lineup. And she rounds things out for the Cougars at these 2023 MRGC championships.
Eliza hoping to get a final hit routine for the Cougars. Another young sophomore, but looking to put up a great routine, starting with a beautiful back handspring step out, layout, step out. A little bit of a bobble on that toe turn. Again, not a throwaway skill by any means on the beam.
Not to mention she's under a lot of pressure right now.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of adrenaline going in when your teammate gets a 9.975 before you. So having to cool down after cheering for her and just doing your own gymnastics, focusing on every skill. Looks like she's doing just that. Looking really good. Besides that bobble on that toe turn, looking very solid leading into the dismount. Punch front full. Great beam rotation for the Cougars. We'll be awaiting that final score to see where the scores lie after this last event.
Our final two performers of the night, one of whom you see there has always got the potential to bring some fireworks, Emily Lopez. She has got one of just 5 perfect 10s in program history, and it was on this very event.
She does have a fall on her blind Jaeger. She is the final competitor, so they won't have to count a fall as all of the routines hit before. She just was a little bit far away.
And Angel Stewart rounds things out on floor. She didn't compete on floor last year for Utah State, but has worked her way into the lineup here in 2023.
Really cool first pass. She went round off, whip half into a front full.
Emily getting back up on the bars for only 1 of 3 falls, or 4 falls of the night, which is so impressive. So many hits routines for all these teams tonight. Here she is going into her dismount. Great handstand. And a double A dismount. Not the routine she was looking for, but still a solid bar rotation for the Broncos to end out their championships tonight.
And over on floor, another great floor routine in progress for Utah State. She's done 2 great first passes going into that final pass that we will see tonight for the MRGC championships. And there you have it. Final routine for Utah State, and the final routine we will see tonight.
4 rotations in the books. The final scores to be tabulated. Southern Utah looking good at the moment. We will put the finishing touches on everything in Cedar City when we come back.
communities are built.
Final scores, we'll start from the bottom up. It looks like Utah State, as it's being reported to us, will put up a 195.825, one of their better marks of this 2023 season. And for first-year head coach Kristen White, who took over this program that lost a number of gymnasts to Clemson when Amy Smith left a year ago, took with her Trinity Brown, Rebecca Wells, Eve Jackson, Bree Clark, and Molly Arnold. A lot of production to replace. Plenty of young talent on this team, but in her first year, the former Arizona State assistant still has plenty of things to feel good about here in year one, top 50 in the country.
Definitely. Despite their fourth place finish, they should be in a really good position right now. They should feel really good with all of the gymnastics they put out tonight, especially on a floor, on their last event on floor where they started off with a fall. They bounced back so well, and they all together just had really clean, dynamic gymnastics that all together made for a really fun night to watch the Utah State Aggies.
And they have 985s peppered all across the scoreboard here tonight. Right now in third place, it looks like it'll be Boise State that eclipsed that 196 number, Maddie, that we talked about coming into the meet tonight, that for Utah, or for Boise State and BYU, they're sitting squarely inside the top 36 NQS nationally. A 196 and above should give them a really good chance to get to regionals once again. Both the Cougars and the Broncos over that number tonight.
Correct, yes. So to calculate the NQS scores again, it is the top 6 scores, 3 top away, 3 top home. So this could knock out one of their lower away score meets to bump up their NQS a little. And again, it depends on how all the other conference championships go, but they should be sitting in a really good spot after their meet tonight.
Meanwhile, the Southern Utah fans have been excited from what they have seen tonight. They put up a season high on vault going into that fourth rotation. And Megan, you talk about the moxie and poise and veteran nature of this Southern Utah team. They showed it in that last rotation, putting up their best score of the year on vault when they needed it most.
Definitely, and you know, no better place to put up a season high and almost school record vault performance than on your last rotation of the MRGC championships. Just great, dynamic, huge amplitude vaults with clean landings, and it's especially difficult going into your last rotation on vault, but you know, they did it and then some.
And has to feel extra good for Southern Utah as they're in the lead at the moment. Has not been finally announced, but that is the expectation. Last time they were in this arena, they had their long tenured home winning streak snapped against Boise State. They put up a 195.525, their second lowest score of the season. They hadn't lost here at home since 2021, but we'll take you down now to the PA announcer to give you all of the final scores for every gymnast who captured vault specialist or beam specialist or whatever may have you tonight here at the MRGC Championships.
Earning first team honors for BYU, Kylie Iaquinto. And for Southern Utah, Kayla Pardue. Also earning first team honors, the 2023 Co-Vault Specialist of the Year from Boise State, Emily Lopez. And for Brigham Young, Sydney Benson. That's your 2023 Vault Conference honorees on vault, along with your Co-Vault Specialist of the Year.
And those are just some of the many outstanding routines we saw on all 4 events tonight.
We saw nothing but great gymnastics tonight. It was really a treat.
Earning second team honors from Southern Utah, Carly McLean.
McLean, who leaves Cedar City tonight in dramatic fashion. She'll be a conference champion, and she matches her career best all-around score with a 39.525, the third best score in Southern Utah history.
Also earning first team, the 2023 Uneven Bar Specialist of the Year from Boise State, Emily Lopez. team honors from Southern Utah, Carly McLean. And from Boise State, Emma Lloyd and Adriana Bach. Earning first team honors from Southern Utah, Ellie Cacciolo. And from Utah State, Sophie Sullivan. And the 2023 Team Specialist of the Year, earning first team honors from Brigham Young, Elise Rollins. And how about another hand for your 2023 All-Conference honorees around the net. Now it's time for the All-Conference recognition on the floor. Earning second team honors from Utah State, Ariel Toomey. And from Utah State, Angelina Osterwood. Also earning second team honors from Southern Utah, Haley Voltaggio. Earning first team honors from Southern Utah, Audrey Schwartz. And from Boise State, Courtney Waxon. And the 2023 Floor Specialist of the Year from Southern Utah, Carly McLean. Finally, we'd like to recognize gymnasts with the All-Conference honors in the all-around. Both earning first team All-NRGC honors from Southern Utah, Carly McLean. And from Utah State, Brianna Brooks. All right, fans, we'd like you to keep your attention on the floor as we award the NRGC Assistant Coach, Freshman, Gymnast, and Head Coach of the Year. Prior to the meet, Mountain Rim Gymnastics coaches submitted their books for each award. First, we'd like to recognize the 2023 NRGC Assistant Coach of the Year. From Southern Utah, Jamie Weissel. Coach of the Year. Also from Southern Utah, Scotty Bauman.
Scotty Bauman, your Coach of the Year in 2023 in year 32 here in Cedar City. What a run he has had.
Very well deserved for Scott. What a guy.
Recognize the 2023 NRGC Freshman of the Year. From Brigham Young, Kylie Aquinto.
And a much-deserved honor there as Kylie Aquinto garners the Freshman of the Year award. And she has got some kind of future up in Provo and an essential member as the Cougars transition to the Big 12. You want foundational pieces.
Definitely, and Kylie is one of those foundational pieces for sure. She's got a bright future ahead of her.
From Southern Utah, Carly McLean.
And nowhere McLean would rather earn that award as the Gymnast of the Year than right here in front of the rowdy and rambunctious home fans that she has given so many thrills to over the last 5 seasons.
All right, everyone, it's time for the individual results. Starting with the individual results on vault. Finishing in 3rd place with a score of 9.875 from Brigham Young, Kylie Iawinto. Finishing tied for 3rd from Southern Utah with a score of 9.875, Caitlin Coe. Finishing tied for 1st with a score of 9.9 from Boise State, Courtney Blackson. And finishing tied for 1st from Southern Utah, Ellie Cacciola.
Cacciola, who set a new career high tonight here at the conference championships with that vault, really set the tone in that final rotation as Southern Utah put the finishing touches on an excellent performance tonight.
And I'd just like to point out that 3rd place was a 9.875. That just goes to show the caliber of gymnastics that we saw here tonight.
And it was really like that from the jump. That early fall on the beam from Boise State feels like a distant memory with everything that we saw after that.
Oh yeah, can't agree.
From Utah State, Danny Kirstein. Also from Utah State with a score of 9.85, Brianna Brooks. With a score of 9.85 for Brigham Young, Anna Bradlett. And from Southern Utah, with a score of 9.85, Carly McLean. Tied for 1st place in the uneven waters with a score of 9.875 from Brigham Young, Kylie Iawinto. With a score of 9.875 from Southern Utah, Tristan Goodman. And now the individual results on balance beam. Finishing in 3rd place with a score of 9.9. From Southern Utah, Ellie Cacciola. Finishing in 2nd place with a score of 9.925 from Southern Utah, Carly McLean. And finishing in 1st place with a score of 9.975 from Brigham Young, Elise Rowland. The individual floor results from the floor basket side. Finishing tied for 3rd with a score of 9.875 from Boise State, Courtney Blackson. Finishing tied for 3rd with a score of 9.875 from Brigham Young, Rebecca Bean Ridley. Finishing in 2nd place with a score of 9.9 from Southern Utah, Haley Voltaggio. And finishing in 1st place with a score of 9.925 from Southern Utah, Carly McLean. the all-around results. Finishing in second place with a combined score of 39.125 from Utah State, Brianna Brooks. And finishing in first place with a combined score of 39.525 from Southern Utah. Finishing in fourth place with a final score of 195.825, the Aggies of Utah State. Finishing in third place with a score of 196.0, the Broncos of Boise State University. Finishing in second place with the team score of 196.575, the Cougars of Brigham Young. And finishing in first place with a combined score of 196.875.
And there it is. Southern Utah captures the elusive conference crown, your MRGC champions in 2023. They are headed to their 10th straight regional, and they'll do so for the first time with some hardware to add to their trophy case. And they do it on their home floor. Sweet, sweet victory for the Flippin' Birds.
What a way to end the regular season for sure.
And assistant coach of the year should be so happy with their team right now.
Tina Bird of Boise State, Guard Young at Utah State, and Kristen White at Utah State, all with tremendous programs, bested tonight by Scotty Bauman, who's carrying that trophy around down there in that sea of humanity here inside the AFEC, as Southern Utah with a 196.875, their fourth best score of the season, their second best here at home, gives them the MRGC title in 2023. They did not win the first in this iteration of the MRGC, but they won the last. BYU off to the Big 12. And we'll await what the future holds for the MRGC. But right now, it's all about Southern Utah. And the vibe's immaculate right now down there on the floor. We'll step aside, come back, and recap it all in Cedar City. Welcome back to a jubilant Cedar City inside the America First Event Center. Spencer McLaughlin with you alongside Megan and Maddie McBride. For the first time in program history, Southern Utah are the champions of the Mountain Rim Gymnastics Conference. And Megan, over 10 years in this league for the Flippin' Birds. Hard to believe a team that's going to its 10th straight regional has never won this league. Just goes to show you, though, what we've talked about all night long, the caliber of gymnastics that these four teams have brought to the table year in and year out, and tonight no different.
Yep, tonight was the night for the Flippin' Birds. They were on every single event, every single routine, and it helps that they have so many veterans on this team with fifth-year seniors and a great fifth-year class with tons of gymnasts in their lineups that have a ton of experience, and I think all of that put together led to their win tonight.
Carly McLean, your 2023 MRGC Gymnast of the Year. The Flippin' Birds will await their fate on Monday to see where they'll be headed for regionals, where they will attempt to do what has never been done in program history. But Maddie, they've already accomplished one first. The feeling has to be down there that why not a second and go to nationals for the first time?
Oh, absolutely. And knowing this SUU team, they can do it. They've had such a remarkable season, and if they show up at regionals like they showed up tonight, there's no doubt they could make their first national appearance, which could be so exciting for this program.
Utah State with a 195.825. Tough crowd they're dealing with in Boise State, BYU, and Southern Utah tonight as they take fourth place. Their season under Coach White in her first year at the helm has likely come to a close, but Boise State and BYU, they too, perhaps more anxiously than Southern Utah, are awaiting their fate on Monday. But with the way they performed tonight, both at 196 and above, Boise State right on that 196 number, looks like they'll be headed to regionals once again.
Definitely, all the performances they had tonight led to those 196 scores, which will do a lot to bump up their NQS score. I think they'll be able to drop those lower away scores, which will definitely help. So we hope to see them at regionals.
For BYU, meanwhile, this their ultimate go-round in the MRGC Championships. They put up quite the fight with an excellent score, 196.575. Their final score here tonight. Southern Utah with the winning score, of course, a 196.875. Highlighted by Carly McLean. What a way for her to end her career in front of the home fans. Conference championships, and she matches her career high in the all-around. A pair of 9.925s and a 39.525 all-around. Just remarkable, but that's what we've come to expect.
Oh, absolutely. And definitely a bittersweet night tonight to see Carly and every other senior in the MRGC compete in their final MRGC Conference Championships, and then Carly and all the rest of the seniors, their last appearance here in the America First Event Center. But what a way for them to go out. Just such a special night for SUU in general, and just so happy for this team.
Carly McLean, Rachel Smith, Caitlin Coe amongst the seniors whose careers here in Cedar City have wrapped up, but they have not wrapped up their careers in a Southern Utah Leo as they'll look ahead to regionals this year. Southern Utah came into this meet ranked 21st in the country with their NQS score. They certainly did themselves only favors in terms of bumping that up by a slot or two that might be dependent upon other teams, but regardless, they're carrying, most importantly, a lot of momentum, confidence, and a conference championship into their regional appearance this year.
For sure, they should feel so good going into regionals in the next 2 weeks with this night on top of every other night they've had this season. Just so far a remarkable season for the Flippin' Birds. Great scores, great gymnastics, and altogether just a great team to take forward into regionals and potentially nationals.
It's the first conference championship for Southern Utah Gymnastics since 2010, back when they were a member of the WAC. Since moving to the MRGC, they hadn't won it until this year. But Maddie, that has to be extra satisfying for Scotty Bauman. This is your 32 at the helm. No more if you're talking about two conference championships that are more than a decade apart. You've had one or two coaching changes in there, but Coach Bauman has come to represent Southern Utah Gymnastics and be the face of that program, and have to imagine he's extra proud of his team tonight.
Oh, absolutely. And this, I think, has felt like a long time coming. There have been so many SUU teams that have preceded this that have just been amazing, but it comes down to this night to win the championship, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. So to have it happen tonight, where he's Coach of the Year, his 31st season, is just a beautiful combination, and I think it's a great night.
And the conference championships continue to roll in for Southern Utah. The women's basketball team, of course, captured the regular season and tournament crowns. They just got back earlier today from their March Madness game against Notre Dame, the first in program history. The men played in the conference tournament championship game on the hardwood, and Southern Utah, the women, of course, on the gymnastics floor, capturing that elusive conference crown here tonight. That'll do it for us in this presentation of the MRGC. For both my outstanding analysts, Megan and Maddie McBride, I'm Spencer McLaughlin saying so long, and our entire production crew were fantastic. Thank you all as always. This has been a production of ESPN. Ryan McCormick, our director tonight. Fantastic, giving you all the action that you saw. All games and meets streaming live on the ESPN app are are available and documented in the ESPN app. Southern Utah emerges as the 2023 MRGC champions with a score of 196.875. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. See you next time, whenever and wherever that may be. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night. So long.